Today we're joined by Elmo Lovano, a professional drummer who came up through the Warped Tour era, spending his early years on the road as scenes, sounds, and careers took shape in real time. From touring and recording to navigating endorsements and founding Jammcard, Elmo brings firsthand insight into one of the most influential periods in modern music. Welcome to the Fully Vented Podcast. Now here's your host, Jared Fallon.
So, welcome to the Fully Vented Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Fallon. This week's guest is a drummer's drummer. He's been a professional musician since the age of 16, living the dream from sweaty summer tours to long nights on the bus, grinding it out on tour. But he didn't stop there. He's also the founder of Jammcard, the music app that connects and empowers musicians around the world. On top of that, he hosts his own podcast where he shares the inside stories of the music industry. Today, we are diving into what is really like being a professional drummer in one of the most exciting eras of music. Please welcome to the show, Elmo.
Yes. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm so excited to dive into what I personally believe is such a fun, cool, genre-defying time in music.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited to open up that chapter of the brain that I haven't thought about in a long time. So yeah, thanks for doing this. I was going to say,
yeah, we're going to do a time warp. You're going to have to
let's go. We just recently had Kevin Lyman, the founder of Warped Tour, on my podcast a few weeks ago, and that was kind of the beginning of remembering those early days and going back, and so doing the deep dive. So then, in talking with you guys and hearing that you're doing the show, it's like, wow, I'm already I've just been in that nostalgic era, and it's making me really happy. So I'm happy you're doing this. Thank you for doing this, and yeah, happy to talk about it.
I like that you had Kevin on. I mean, Warped Tour is such a I don't think you can talk about music without Warped Tour, and the fact that it's back and everybody's like loving the nostalgic, hey, I saw this band in 2005. Now I'm seeing them in 2025. It just, such a cool thing.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm so happy it's back. And they've already announced like next year dates. Let's go! So it's happening. I went to the Warped Tour in Long Beach, this one that just happened, and which was crazy to see how big it is because it was never that big as it is now. And then I know they announced for next year's. So it's cool.
Yeah. I also remember buying my $25 like day pass, you know what I mean, to just sit there and roast and drink shotgun monsters, you know what I mean, with maybe I want to say the crowd was maybe like 100 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like I think my first Warped Tour I might have been 9 or 10. Does that sound about right? Something
what year
like
was that?
Oh boy, if I was born in 2000.
Okay, nice.
Say 2000 was probably like my first one. 2001.
Warped Tour 2000. Warped Tour 2000 was big. It was already big at that point.
Big, I guess it depends on who you actually wanted to see.
That's true. Oh yeah. There was definitely small stages.
That's what I'm saying.
For sure.
It's like what stage were you bearing the heat for?
Yeah, there was definitely a 10,000 person stage, and there was definitely a 10-person stage.
Yeah. So that's why I say, like, when the bands I wanted to see might have been like the 100 people standing there.
Yeah.
Bracing the heat just to see them, where I'm like, I don't really want to go in a pit over there. I'm small.
So fun.
Yeah, the pit's scary. We'd like to thank our friends at Jammcard. Jammcard is the Music Professionals Network, a vetted community of top-tier musicians, producers, and music pros. With Jammcard booking, anyone from aspiring artists and students to hobbyists and working pros can hire the best in the business for recording, production, mixing, lessons, mentorship, consulting, and more. Download the Jammcard app or visit jammcard.com to learn more. The one thing, obviously, we got to talk about Orange County and the tide of Warped Tour. How did you hear about Orange County originally?
So I've started touring as a teenager, as you said, and I want to say by the time I was touring, Orange County was already taking off, right? So I was born in '84, so I started touring in like '99, and so I was already obsessed with the punk scene of NoFX and all that. Like the first Warped Tour I went to was '98. So and that was NoFX, that was Rancid, and a bunch of other incredible people. And that sound, that Orange County, that the pop of the snare and that bright, crispy tone of the toms and that punchy kick and everything was just so obviously such a big part of punk rock was that sound. And then, seeing that the OCDP logo and just being like, what? And then having the powder coating wraps and all that stuff. Like I was I don't remember. I mean, you would know better than me because I know you're an expert at this, but I don't remember ever. I didn't know if that was a thing before OCDP, because obviously I'd been a drummer since I was even younger than that, 10 or whatever. I was obsessed with drums, but even just as a young lad, my dad was always has been a big music lover. So we were listening to music. So I was always watching, whether it was, Zeppelin videos or Beatles when I was, 1, 2. So I was always seeing drums, but then seeing that OCDP and the sparkle kits and all this stuff, I was like, this is so different. So I don't know if they were the first people to do that or not, but it was the first I ever saw. I was like, these kits look so different and they sound so different. And all of my favorite drummers seemed to be playing this as it kept going. And then as Blink-182 then became a huge band and Travis joined, and then that whole era, and then 311 and No Doubt and all those big kits and those big drummers, those were all my favorite drummers, right? And they all had such distinct sounds. So totally. I probably discovered it, being either at Warped Tour or around then, because it was so different back then. There wasn't the internet yet, but I was already reading Modern Drummer magazine every single month, but you wouldn't really see OCDP in Modern Drummer magazine. That was more so for the Pearl and the DW and the Tom Slingerland and the Yamaha and
Sabian, Zildjian, like those ads. You weren't really seeing the smaller fish, right?
Yeah. And especially, and OCDP being the biggest of the boutique companies, right? And kind of the leader of this whole scene that they ended up starting, and having all these other sub drum companies being inspired by them and starting all these other companies. So I don't remember the exact moment I discovered OCDP, but I was in this punk band called Limit Point. That was my first touring band when I was 15. Loved that band so much. And so I was playing a lot of local shows in LA, a lot of regional shows around the Southwest. And it would only be every once in a while you would see an OCDP kit because they're rare, right? But whenever I'd see one, it'd be like, duh, they have one. Like, I think
you saw it in the wild. You're like, whoa.
Yeah. Like, I remember I have these memories. So Mikey, the singer of Limit Point, my band, he was like a big bro to me, and he would always throw these punk rock shows at the La Cañada Community Center. Cause I'm from Pasadena area here in California. And he would have the Ataris and Longfellow and like all these sort of Jelly Beans, and all these bands would play. And Limit Point would play with them. And I want to say it was Longfellow. I think Longfellow's drummer had an OCDP kit, and that may have been the first one that I saw in person. Okay. But because there was this backstage area in the back of the community center, and that's where the musicians would congregate. That's where we would set up our drums. Oh man, I haven't thought about that in forever. So
thinking your setup.
Thinking of back in those punk rock days, especially playing community centers and those kind of venues, right? Mm-hmm. I remember setting up my drums and having that be a thing, because you're not setting up on stage, setting up backstage, but all the drummers would do it, and you would look at each other's drums, and it was like, I would want to, and this is also in the days when I was so young, I was so excited, right? So setting up my drums every time was exciting. It wasn't, 10 years later, I'm like, I don't ever want to set up my drums, but
don't even give me a drum key.
Yeah, exactly. Once you get to the drum tech level, it's hard to go back unless you are unless you really, really, really care. But anyway, so back in those days, I really, really, really cared, and would set up my drums. And I remember we would play shows back then with Story of the Year. At the time, it was called Big Blue Monkey. It was before they were called Story of the Year. And we played with a Newfound Glory before they were Newfound Glory. And we played with River Phoenix before they were Phoenix TX.
Yeah.
And we played with, God, who else was there that slightly changed their names or whatever. But yeah, we were playing with all those bands, right? And a lot of the times, I think the Ataris too. I think the Ataris had an OCDP kit. Is that true?
Yeah, and it's funny. So Nick Turner, one of the builders we had on, I'm almost, I'd have to find out from him. I'm almost positive he did the demo record for the Ataris. Like he was the
Wow.
drummer on that demo record. I'm almost positive. So
Wow.
yeah. But another question for you. We will have Josh Wills on here at some point, but
Tell him
story
I
of the
said
year.
hey.
I don't think he was the original. I think Dan, the singer, was actually originally the drummer, and they needed a singer, so he hopped from behind the kit to go sing.
So
Back when it was still.
by the time I met them in LA, so they had already got got to the point where they were leaving St. Louis and getting to LA.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they were still called Big Blue Monkey, I'm 99% sure that was Josh on drums at that time already. I think when I had
Gotcha.
met them, Josh was the drummer. Dan was definitely the singer. So like he wasn't on. Yeah, it was definitely Josh back then. So you can ask him. That one must have been 2000.
Okay.
Probably the year 2000. Maybe 2001. 2000. Anyways, Josh was a great drummer. I mean, story of the year or Big Blue Monkey. Ask him about Big Blue Monkey.
Yeah, I should
And tell
introduce him
him,
like that.
tell him I say hello. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but we're amazing. They were amazing even back then. We would see them play. They were doing all the kicks on stage. They had the high energy show. They had great songs. It was so apparent, like this band's gonna go. They're gonna make it, because we would see so many bands back then, and punk rock was notoriously quote unquote easy to play, right? Like in terms of
Mm-hmm.
like bar chords and these kind of things. But like there were so many people writing such great songs with that punk rock recipe or mentality. And it was my favorite music. And so there were so many bands that I just loved so much, but then you would see one where you're like, whoa, this is going to go. Like the Ataris, before they were big, I was like, they're going to go. River Phoenix, I was like, this is going to go. Big Blue Monkey, story of the year. A lot of those bands, and then there's ones that you think are going to go that don't go. They just don't. They don't go the mile. It happens, whether it's personal things or it's just whatever it may be. Whatever the magic that goes behind what makes a band take off or not. Right? It's really magic.
Oh, absolutely. Or you think of like a record that they came out with, or and it's such a great record, and then after that, it's like, what happened to them? Where did
Oh my.
they, like it just doesn't. They don't capture that magic again. Like before Falling in Reverse, Escape the Fate, that first record with Ronnie.
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh
saw
yeah.
them on Warped Tour. It was one of those things where it's like such a great record, but they never made it again. Not the band, but you know what I mean? They never made that type of record with Ronnie, and they never got captured that lightning in a bottle again, I feel like.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, sometimes you have a hit record, but it's hard to make a follow up. But sometimes that hit record the record that you feel is a hit record to you,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't go that far. And back in those days, it was about getting in the zines, getting on the early blogging days, like even then when it was the MySpace days, and like all those, and Pure Volume. And I just had Travie McCoy on my podcast.
Word, yeah.
Gym Class Heroes. It's 4 hours. It's a 4-hour deep dive, and and it was really interesting talking to him about it, about that scene, and because he was, I was in the Warped Tour scene like one generation before or whatever. I was playing
Mm-hmm.
in 2001, 2, 3, and so he was like, I think he was like 6,
08?
7, 8, 9, yeah,
Okay.
or something like that. Yeah, he did 7 years. He was telling me on Warped Tour, crazy stories, but yeah, it's just crazy to hear all these different warped perspectives from the different decades. And then there was the generation before me that was there playing in 95, 96, 97, 98. And, I think by then, like what year was OCDP founded?
Good question.
Yeah.
So it's one of those, they had a retail store originally.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the Orange County drum and percussion comes from. So they had a retail store. I want to say it was 92, 93 is when they stopped kind of doing that. And by like 94, they got more well known for making custom drums. Like it was just kind of like a side thing in the back.
Yes.
Like a lot of the early stuff wasn't the flashy things everybody thinks about, the vented snare or the powder coating. It was
Yeah.
just basic colors. I don't think a lot of them had badges, and just kind of like you said originally, like the scene. So they kind of
Yeah.
just made their circuit of like, oh well, let's give this drummer this drum, or he played it, he liked the sound. So then where'd you get that? Oh, these local guys are they're putting them together, and it kind of just spitballs, you know what I mean? It's like booking shows. Like you just kind of you do one show and then have a few guys show up. Hey, you know, before you realize it, 5, 6 shows down the road, you got how many people coming to see you? It's the same kind of thing. I'm sure they were just building drums one at a time, and then before you realize it, they're in a full blown factory. You know what I mean?
Wow. So by the
Yeah.
time they were making the custom drums, yeah, Warped Tour. By the time Warped Tour started, OCDP was already in their beginning of that trajectory. So the whole Warped Tour scene was exposed to OCDP at that point already. Yeah, but it's fun to think about. And I never got offered that free snare. I never.
No, you weren't part of that.
I didn't get it, man. I got offered the snare from Truth Drums.
Ooh.
That was who came up to me and offered me the snare and gave me my first drum endorsement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For people out there, do you want to actually describe, or in your words, what an endorsement means?
What an endorsement means to me today is different what it meant to me back then, right? So as a young drummer, excited to have even a discount on a drum set or to even be on the website of a drum company was such a big deal, right? It was so just to be in a family, just to feel wanted or approved of or accepted as a drummer, like
your playing is worthy to be, to have to be mentioned somewhere.
For sure. And drumming was always my favorite thing ever. So I was reading the magazines every month and looking at other drummers, always watching drum videos and just dreaming of that. So once I got to the point where Truth Drums offered me an endorsement, it was an amazing thing. So my endorsement with Truth Drums, I still had to pay for my kit. Right. I think I paid $2,000 for my kit. I want to say wow. It was a 4-piece kit because those were super popular at the time, right?
I mean, who didn't play a 4-piece?
Yeah, it was.
Who could afford more than a 4-piece?
Yeah, exactly. You're paying per piece. Yeah. Once I signed with Pearl years later, I was like, it's a 10-piece. But
give me everything.
But yeah, I met the Truth Drums guys, and I don't remember where I met them, but I was in Limit Point. It was when I was in Limit Point. And that might have been a lie.
Uh-oh.
Wait, was I in Never Heard of It already? Okay, when I was in Limit Point at first, I had my first shows with them. I had a Silver Flash Pearl export kit. That was my first real drum set when I was 15. Then I got a Thomas Starr Classic when I was 16 or 17 or something. So I definitely had those kits in Limit Point, mostly the brown Thomas Starr Classic. And then I had my Truth kit. But I may have just joined Never Heard of It when I got the Truth kit, honestly.
Interesting. So when you got the Truth kit, were the sizes based off of something you would have gotten from Orange County, or were you taking, you know what I mean, the kind of the scene, like you were saying, just seeing what was popular and taking that and going with Truth instead of Orange County?
So like I said, Truth are the guys that I met. So I don't know if Orange County was just never at that show, because back then it was so much, who are you meeting Daniel? Is he at your show? Right.
Gotcha.
And we were not playing shows with Blink. It wasn't until later I was playing shows with Aquabats. I toured with Aquabats when I was in Never Heard of It, but at that point I was already with Truth. But so I just wasn't, even though I was in LA, because I wasn't in the Orange County punk scene. I was in the LA punk scene. So of course I was still playing punk shows at Chain Reaction and at what was the place in Corona? God, what was that club called? Oh, whatever. The something theater.
You're gonna remember later tonight.
Oh God! People in the comments, the real punk rock heads. Yeah. There's a theater in Corona that I'm assuming not there anymore, but that was a big punk rock place. But I mean, of course, Chain Reaction being a main hub. So I was playing all those shows, but I lived in LA, so I was always coming home. So anyways, I just never met the Orange County guys. They were never backstage at a show I was playing or whatever happened. But I ended up meeting the Truth guys, and they really liked my playing. At the time, I was definitely getting a lot of compliments as a drummer. I knew that people liked my drumming at that point. and the Truth guys, offered me. I went to their house, which is where they built everything out of a garage,
Wow.
and it was in Rancho Cucamonga, and that was where Truth drums came out of this garage in Rancho Cucamonga. This is before SJC popped off, right? It was like OCDP and Truth. I don't know chronologically, timeline wise, which one was actually founded first, but definitely Truth popped off before SJC did.
Yeah, I want to say they formed in 2000, but for me, I don't think I recognized them until Panic at the Disco, like really hit the
for
scene.
SJC?
I want to say like 06, 07, that kind of.
Okay, yeah, so definitely Truth was first. Yeah, for sure. So I was so excited to be with Truth. And so to answer your question of what is an endorsement, back then to me it was just like, are they listing you on their website? Like, this is one of our drummers, not just I bought this drum set, but they're like, they consider you a part of their drummers, right? Like their roster.
Yeah.
And then when you got a discount, and the discount was, I don't remember what it was, but like I said, I'm pretty sure my kit was $2,000 or something. And it was a 4-piece kit. I had the 40 ply vented snare, right?
Ooh.
And I had a birch kit. I don't remember too many details about it, but I remember I had the white powder coated hardware on a black kind of swirl of a kit. And then the snare was reversed. It was the white swirl wrap and then the black powder coated hardware. Vented snare, really thin shells. I don't remember the ply, but very thin, which is what I wanted. And the drums were so light, and my kick drum was huge. It was, I want to say it was 22 by 22, right? I wanted the long kick drum. I don't think it was necessarily a sound choice of mine as much as it was a style choice.
It looks cool. Like, I don't care what any.
Cool. Yeah.
It's one of those, like, I think that's also like I used to joke like the 20 ply and the really thick plies. Maybe it was a psychological thing. It felt like you just got more. You know what I mean? Like, it just looked like a cool, like someone's gonna approach you like you're talking about a 40 ply.
Yeah, more plies equals better.
Oh, duh.
But and I would, you could see the thickness, and so the kit was light, but the snare was so heavy.
Exactly.
So heavy, just like
brick.
Oh no, but the kick drum you could pick up with like your pinky, like it was, even though it was 22 by 22, right? Like, and I loved that kit, man. That kit sounded amazing. It was competitive to Orange County. It was the exact look that I wanted, so I was very happy. I couldn't have been happier, honestly, at the time. I was like, this is amazing. And then, years later, I signed with Pearl when I started doing like more major label stuff, and I got free drums at that point. So that's the real endorsement you want. I guess there's a couple different tiers. So there's like there's entry level endorsement tier, which is they list you on their website and you get a discount. Great. And if you get offered that and you're, and it's their first thing in your career, take it. Great. Then the next level of endorsement is free product, right? Sometimes maybe they'll give you like one free kit, and then your next kit you get a discount, but the first one's free, or if it really depends on the value of your brand yourself, right? So if you are a value add to them, then you might get all free kits, or maybe you get one free kit a year. Or you're just like, if you're really popular and you have real brand equity that helps them, or they believe adds value to them, then you could get, multiple kits a year or whatever. Then the top tier endorsement, which is rare these days, but you're getting free drums and they're paying you, right? You're making money from being on their roster. Whether that is they're putting your name or your face on the box, or you have a signature product, or there was, back in the day, a lot of the legends would just they'd get paid. They'd get like 10 grand a year, like salary, on top of free drums. Now, I don't think that was ever happening at OCDP. Definitely not at Truth. That was like, if you're Dennis Chambers, if you're Vinny.
Clinics still a thing. So I'm assuming they would get, a chunk of change to go do
clinic fees. Yeah, clinic fees would be additional to that, but it's like, really, are they supporting you on their clinics? Or if they're throwing the clinic, are they choosing you to be the clinician? Are you the drummer? And then if so, you're definitely getting paid every performance for that clinic fee. That would all be additional. But those were only for the super drummers. You had to be able to sell tickets. You had to be able to, if you were Chad Smith and they put your name on the clinic, people go and see you, right? So I think of the Orange County drummers, that would have only really been Travis Barker, of course, maybe Adrian Young at the height of no doubt. And maybe that's it. Maybe Chad Sexton at the height of 311. But really, that was more for the if you want to call them the major label drum companies, the Tama and the DW and the Pearl and the Yamaha and stuff.
Well, I also think it's interesting that so Daniel Jensen, he's kind of credited for being like almost like the A&R guy, where he would go to he'd be the guy waiting outside the venue to give like Chad Sexton a snare drum to try out. Did you ever get a chance to meet Daniel Jensen?
You know what? I did later, but I didn't in those years. I did not. When OCDP was the hot drum company in our scene, I never met Daniel. I don't even think I knew who Daniel was. I just knew OCDP, but I didn't know it was this guy Daniel. Once again, pre-internet and everything. What's funny is I ended up making friends with his wife, Kirsten, who runs or ran. She's been at Zildjian forever. She's still at Zildjian now, but back in the day, I want to say she was like head of A&R or LA A&R for Zildjian. And I signed. So after Truth Drums, my next endorsement was ProMark. ProMark drumsticks.
So this would have been when ProMark was still for bear with me, the full on nerdiness. ProMark was still like, hadn't been bought by Diodario, and we're still making, the guy was originally still making them by like, I want to say by hand or by, on a small scale. That's wild.
I don't remember. They were already big. Obviously, they weren't Vic Firth or anything. Vic Firth was still the by far the biggest, but ProMark was. You know what? I honestly actually don't remember if it was ProMark or Evans drumheads. One of the two of them was my next endorsement, and they kind of almost came together so maybe they were already at Diodario, because Diodario I know ended up buying both companies. Yeah. So I honestly don't remember, but I definitely had ProMark and Evans as my next sponsors, and I didn't have cymbals yet. I was still buying my own cymbals. And then I ended up signing with Sabian when I was probably 21. So by the time I was 21, I was like fully sponsored. And then when I was like 22, God, was it? Yeah, I think it was Pearl was before. Yeah. When I was 22, Pearl offered me an endorsement with free drums.
What was your reaction when it was like, hey?
I couldn't believe it, because it was like one of the greatest days of my life, because as a kid, I told you my first real drum kit that I love was my Pearl Export, my Silver Flash Pearl Export. So when I was playing in my bedroom alone, knowing zero musicians in the world, and just playing drums coming home from elementary school, right? And going straight to my drum set and playing every day and just being obsessed, that was on my Silver Flash Pearl kit. So, and I had, a Pearl banner on my wall. Like my bedroom was a bed and that Silver Flash Pearl Export kit. And then photos of drummers like ripped out from magazines, like all over my bedroom. Like, so when I got the Pearl endorsement, I was like, this is unbelievable. I got to make a custom kit. I got it for free. I was like, this is just crazy.
So you got the real special treatment. What when you said custom, what did you have made from Pearl?
Okay, so maybe I don't know if custom is the word because I chose, or I guess I could have any kit I wanted, right? So I chose a Pearl reference kit because Reference had just come out, and that was like their nicest kit, unless you were getting into the Masterworks real custom stuff. So yeah, it was not custom. It was just whatever I wanted. So so I chose a Pearl reference. It was also the most expensive. So I chose a Pearl reference, and I wanted natural maple with gold hardware.
Ooh, bling.
And that, when I got that kit, man, I was like, holy crap, I made it. Like, this is unbelievable. I can't believe I'm on Pearl's website. I did an interview with Pearl. I was like, this is the best. And then Dave Elitch.
Ooh.
I think it was Dave Elitch. Yes, Dave Elitch brought Ben Davies from Vic Firth to my show in LA and introduced me to Ben. And Ben said to me, I know you're with ProMark, but if you ever want to make the switch to Vic, here's my email. And I was just like, what? For sure. Like, because
say no more.
Yeah, like Vic Firth was my favorite. Like I said, when I was a kid, it was Pearl drums. It was Vic Firth. That's what I would buy, and that was the stickers I had on my wall. Was Vic Firth, and it was Remo. But when I got offered Truth Drums and ProMark and Evans, I said yes immediately. Of course, I was like, "Are you kidding me? Discounted stuff, or even maybe a free pair of sticks or whatever? Sure, free set of heads, and then I pay a discount, whatever it was. Great." So yeah, the second I met Pearl, it was Kevin Bly from Pearl.
I know Kevin.
Kevin, big, huge shout out to Kevin, because he signed so many of the drummers that was that next generation at Pearl that really changed Pearl from the legends like Dennis Chambers and stuff, and started bringing in the younger cats like myself into Pearl. That was Kevin Bly. And then Kevin introduced me to Mike Ferris and then all that. So that was great. So big shouts to Kevin Bly, because he took a chance on me, because I still wasn't a huge drummer, right? Like I was a professional drummer. And I was on, big tours and stuff, but like I wasn't
you didn't
Travis.
Consider yourself like thinking like, you know what I mean? Like on the level of like a Dennis Chambers or
no way.
Like a Simon Phillips kind of thing,
I mean, those guys are also, those guys are also like way older and legends, but like, for the people that were my age, there was bigger drummers than me. Right. Okay. I was definitely a professional, and I was definitely like I won the Warped Tour, or I got second place. I forgot. I think I got first or second place on the Warped Tour, and the Warped Tour the drummer of the year competition.
Oh, so you have, for our listeners who don't know, Elmo, do you want to tell them like about those awards that Warped Tour would give out? I don't think many people know about that.
Yeah, this is some insider stuff. So wait, I got second, I remember, because so
second is the best. First is the worst. Come on, you got this.
I appreciate your love and support. Thank you. Warped Tour, I forgot what year it was. But anyway, so every single night after the Warped Tour, there was the Warped Tour barbecue. That was for the bands and the crew. And it would happen backstage in the parking lot, even though the stage was still in the parking lot. But it would happen back where the buses were. And there was always a barbecue, which was just like all the bands congregating and their guests for the day, their guest list and family or whoever's there, and the crew of Warped Tour too. So it was something to look forward to every single night, because Warped Tour days were brutal. It was really hot, long days, etc. So that the night, and then I was in a young band, or both my bands that I did Warped Tour with were smaller bands compared to. We weren't headlining. We weren't on main stage. We were on the smaller stages, and so it's so great because you'd see Tim Armstrong walk by.
I was about to say, who would be some of the headliners versus like some of the
back then?
What bands would have been like the headliners, and what would have been?
Yep. So, man, the first year I played, who was headlining? It was like I want to say it was like AFI was a headliner. Good Charlotte was a headliner. NoFX was a headliner. Rancid was a headliner. Those kind of bands were the headliners, right? Mm-hmm. And then I played. There was some smaller stages. There was the Kevin Says stage, where Kevin Lyman, the founder, would choose bands that he liked and wanted to give a break to, and so I played that stage, which is a smaller stage. And we played like the Volcom stage. There was an Ernie Ball stage. Anyway, so there was this whole huge plethora of young bands trying to make it, and then there was the headliners, right? And that's the Warped Tour, which was so great about Warped Tour, is we were all together. But I'm just such a huge fan, so I see these guys that are my favorite singers or drummers or whatever just walking around. I remember Jordan Burns from Strung Out walking around and being right. It's funny because years later we're friends. I'm friends with most of these people now, and we're seen as peers and equals. But back then I was just like, oh my God,
I'm not worthy.
These are God among men. All these. And so one of the activities that would happen at the Warped Tour in the barbecue at the end of the tour, it was a once a year thing, there was like the best drummer on Warped Tour drum competition. Drums would be set up in the parking lot. We would play at the barbecue, and then it would all the drummers would play, right? And it got down to the final 2, and I got second place, and I must have been 18 or something. And first place was Reverend Avenged Sevenfold,
Ooh,
the
the
Rev.
Rev.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Oh man,
And
he I don't think people realize for when Avenged Sevenfold like really hit the scene with what was the record that had Backcountry and like the big quote unquote hits on it?
I
I can't
forgot the
remember
name
the
of
name.
that album. Iconic
Yeah,
album. Yeah.
yeah, we're both drawing a blank, but I remember I saw them. It would have been 2005, and it was Coheed opened up for them, and Avenged Sevenfold headline, and I just remember, dude, blew my mind. I'm like, what did I just witness? You
City
know
of
what I mean?
Evil. City
City
of
of Evil.
Evil.
There we go. Yeah, it had
Yeah.
yeah the big hits on it. Beast and the Harlot.
Yeah. So at that
Yeah.
point, they were that album brought them from because at first they were a super small band. They played on Kevin Says stage with me. So I'm talking in front of 50 people. It would be us, and then it'd be Avenged Sevenfold, right? Playing in front of 50 people. Like I watched that day in, day out, like day after day, saw Avenged Sevenfold play in front of 50 people. But they were great. They were one of the bands you're like, these guys are awesome. And they were different because they were harder, especially back then. The early Avenged was super hard. And for Warped Tour, they were one of the harder, heavier bands, darker
Mm-hmm.
bands, and and then they went on to become obviously Avenged. They had radio hits. They sold out the Forum last year and all this stuff. So, but the the drummer, was a superstar. And every single day, I remember once, and then Avenged became a headliner of Warped Tour, playing on main stage. And every time Avenged would play, the stage would be packed because all the drummers would want to watch the Rev play. You'd want to be. He had a big kit.
Oh yeah. He also had his toms in a very unique,
Very
in a very
unique.
unique position, kind of almost like Phil Collinsy. You know what I mean? Just can like
kind of
roll.
flat and yeah.
Like his floor toms were like at an angle, like
Yeah.
they were essentially mounted toms, not floor toms. But
well, because back then the main drum beat you would hear on Warped Tour was right, the punk rock beat,
the polka beat, I call it, like
the polka beat, yeah.
Yeah.
So then when Avenged came, and Avenged was playing on Warped Tour, that was the first time when there was double pedal going like that wasn't. There was no other bands playing that beat that I remember at that time on Warped Tour, right? So like the Rev and Avenged really brought in the because they were before all the other metal core or whatever that genre even came. They were earlier.
They
right?
kind of marked the changing of tides there. Yeah, like the music is changing. Because I mean, I want to say, was it Poison the Well? Because Chris Hornbrook was,
yep, love Chris.
Yeah. Did you happen to did you meet him on Warped Tour by any chance?
I did, yeah. So Poison the Well and I became bros. Actually, I did that Warped Tour with them. Their first Warped Tour playing main stage, and that was when they were at the peak of Poison the Well. What was that album? Tear from the Red.
Yes,
Tear from the Red.
I can picture the album art. You know what I mean?
Loved that album, and loved Chris's drumming. And I was a big fan because I always loved metal, and there was very few metal bands on Warped Tour. It was like Avenged was the only one, and then Poison the Well was like the only one where they're screaming, actually, right? They were the first band screaming on Warped Tour and doing the big breaks, those big breakdowns.
Yeah.
Like that was Poison the Well was, I want to say, the first band playing Warped Tour main stage doing that. Could be wrong, but
I would think so too.
Yeah, I think they were. And I remember they were such sweet guys. So if you watch them play, it was intimidating. But then if you talk to them backstage, they were all lovely guys, right? They had tattoos and they looked tough and they were playing this heavy music. You'd listen to the music and be like, oh my God, scary. And then you'd meet them and you're like, oh, they're so sweet.
Oh,
and I remember, yeah, so nice. Chris is such a sweetheart, and he's a great drummer, and he wrote such amazing drum parts. And my band, I forgot, I must have never heard of it at that point. Yeah, by the time Poison the Well was playing. So I don't know, let's say I'm 20 years old. We weren't going to do the Canada dates for whatever, because crossing the border was always a thing. So we weren't going to do the big thing for whatever reason. My band wasn't going to do the Canada dates, or we were going to miss a few dates. I don't remember why. And then Poison the Well asked me like, yo man, do you want to ride on our bus and just come with us and hang? And like Chris is like, you can be my drum tech, but you don't have to do anything. You don't have to set up anything. Just come hang.
Stay there and look pretty.
I was like, yeah. No, I was so known for that. No.
You had the long hair back then. I don't know, man.
No, I didn't. This is before my long hair. Yeah, I was. Oh. The long hair came like 2 years later.
Damn, I was close.
I had spiky hair, some like short Liberty spikes kind of like around. And I had purple hair and I had a lip ring in the middle because that was really popular then.
I have a very important question. Did you have a studded belt?
I definitely had a studded belt. I had girl jeans on, most likely. I had because that was a whole thing, to wearing the tightest jeans possible.
Yeah.
And I had a lip ring and I had earrings. And I never got tattoos. I still don't have a single tattoo. And I just never was interested in getting tattoos. And I'm grateful for that, because if not, I would have tons of Warped Tour tattoos all over my body right now. So, and I still have like the hole from the lip ring, but I took it out after a few years. But anyways, so that was when when Poison the Well offered me to ride on the bus with them, I was like, of course, I love you guys. Like, let's go. So I rode on the bus with them for like a week. Because they had their own bus, which was a big deal back then on Warped Tour. If you had your own bus, you were killing it.
Gotcha. So that
they
means
didn't
like,
share a bus.
Okay, some serious, heavy hitters here.
They're making money. This band is making money. Like they can afford a bus. Buses are super expensive. And on Warped Tour was very known for, if you had a bus, which was a big deal, it was a shared bus. There'd be like 2 bands in it, right? Or 3 bands in it, and they would just fill it with bunks and people sleep all over the floor. The metal fests back then, even like Poison the Well would be the headliner. They were like one of the main marquee acts at that time coming out.
Yeah, well, what's always stuck out to me is so like in regards to Orange County, you always had I think in people's minds they think of the ska stuff with like, No Doubt, Real Big Fish, Less Than Jake, but then you also had the pop punk stuff where you had, Blink-182, Newfound Glory. But what I always liked about Poison the Well was that you could play metal on these drums and they did the same thing, had such a distinct personality. Same thing with because 99 is when was the first Ozfest, 1999?
Sounds right.
It sounds about right. Yeah. So like you had a lot of birth of those bands, like Joey Jordison was still playing Orange County, and the snares were so, intense. And I always remember hearing Chris's sound and like, oh wow, so like you can play pop punk, ska, and now metal. And then I remember when seeing Limp Bizkit for the first time, I'm like, oh, and you can do new metal, you can do rap too. Like it blew my mind, the versatility.
So, man. Yeah, they did an incredible job. Orange County did an amazing job. Like now, just myself as a startup founder, thinking of them as a startup company, it's so hard to break into a scene. They created a whole new lane, and they were tastemakers, and they chose the right artists. They bet on bands, as you were saying. They bet on bands early. And like, that's so hard to do. And they didn't just pick one winner with Travis. They picked 20 winners.
Like whatever, like when we're talking about Pearl and stuff like that, like you said, the heavy hitters or the legends, like it felt like Dennis Chambers, like the music that, or what they were advertising or promoting, the drummers, nothing against them. It just wasn't what was popular. And it just felt like Orange County hit the scene and got the right drummers that they could do no wrong, And it was always on like the cusp of popularity. Like they signed Travis and then pop punk, not that it wasn't there, but it blows up. Then they, you think of bands like The Used or Story of the Year and like the beginning of emo. Like even Dan Trapp with Census Fail, he played Orange County in the beginning. I think Let It Enfold You was the first record he played with, or I think, their demo in that one, he used Orange County. But yeah, like the birth of emo music and like Taste of Chaos, they were ahead of that too. Like it's just ahead of the curve.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And Taste of Chaos was also Kevin Lyman.
I see, I knew that. I don't know if a lot of our listeners knew that. Like if you didn't, it was like, if you wanted to really be immersed in the music of the time, Warped Tour was a summer, you would sweat your ass off. And then it was like winter, you had to freeze in line outside with, if you were smart enough to wear a hoodie, you know what I mean? To see Taste of Chaos in the winter. Like that was always the, what you would do, take your pick. But Taste of Chaos was that same kind of thing, just blew my mind.
I remember The Used too, man. I remember when that was another band that like changed the sound of Warped Tour. And I think I want to say was probably one of the reasons Taste of Chaos became a thing was The Used. I could be wrong, but I remember something from there that was like the sound of The Used and their performances at Warped Tour and everything is, I believe, one of the inspirations of making Taste of Chaos and having a separate festival that's more that vibe. And I wasn't friends with Brandon back then, but I was friends with Bert, the singer of The Used. Bert and I would hang a bunch. And he was like that year on Warped Tour, whatever year that was, 2003 or something, he was like one of the main, superstar rock stars that year. He was like climbing on the sides of the speakers and stuff. And, and yeah, we made friends and we hung out a bunch. I haven't talked to him in years either. It's crazy also who you still talk to, because now, okay, we're in 2025, right? So it's been, over 20 years ago, I played Warped Tour for the first time. And which is crazy to think about. And when I think about who I talk to today, it's not that many people still drummer, or even actually all of them. Like, obviously I still talk to Kevin Lyman because I just had him on the pod and everything. And I haven't talked to Chris Hornbrook recently, but we remained friends, and I saw him a few years ago. And up until COVID, I would see Hornbrook kind of regularly, but we're still homies. We just lost touch post one of those COVID things. And who came over to my house the other day was Aaron Stern. And Aaron was the drummer for Matchbook Romance, another one of those great bands from that era. That did well, but didn't get to the headliner status. But they did a bunch of dates on in probably 2002 or 3, or maybe the whole thing. They were on main stage. I don't remember. Anyways, but Aaron was my boy. He came over the other day. He works at a record label. He works at RCA at a major label.
Oh, that's awesome. I feel like from an outsider's perspective with Matchbook Romance, people might have confused it with My Chemical Romance, but
this is before
yeah,
that.
oh yeah. The record, it had the song off of it. I want to say it was Monsters. I want to say it was probably one of their biggest, bigger hits. And it's funny, I got to work with their bass player Ryan on a few other projects.
Ryan, man,
yeah, he's the man.
They were all sweet guys.
Oh yeah, I have to hit him up and see how he's doing. But didn't he go on to do was it Craig Owens? They did the band Drugs. I want to say that was also his project.
That.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Yeah, I feel like they did a Warped Tour. I might have worked with them or seen them from afar from, you know what I mean?
For sure.
2012, something like that. But
it's crazy to think about like who I still talk to, or who's still in my life. But a bunch of people, like, we follow each other, but I haven't talked to them in a while. Like Dan, you mentioned, Sense of Veil, like there's a bunch of sweet guys. We're still friends or acquaintances. We just don't talk, but we follow each other or whatever it is. And then the next generation, like, of Warped Tour, which was like, I feel like Luke Holland and all those guys were the generation after that. And Luke is like my adopted son. Luke lives with me. Like, Luke Holland lives in my house, and we've lived together for years now at this point.
That's great.
And but he was an amazing drummer, or he is an amazing drummer, but he was in that the year after me, or the not the years, the generation after me, or maybe even two generations after me. Because I came back and played Warped Tour. So the last Warped Tour I played was 2003, and then I didn't play Warped Tour again until 2010. And I came back to play because I was drumming with Skrillex, and Skrillex had just come out, and we did Warped Tour Pomona. We just did one show, and it was Skrillex and I, duo, just drummer DJ duo.
Did it blow your mind when so for people who don't know, Sonny was in the band, from first to last, and I remember seeing them on Warped Tour, and then they just kind of went away. Just didn't really think much of it, right? And then comes back, and I'm like seeing Skrillex, and you're like, why does that guy look familiar?
Yeah, man. So that's another one. Skrillex is like my brother. I love him to death. Like, we met on Warped Tour years ago when he was the singer from First to Last, and he was another one that brought in this new sound to Warped and was on main stage. And I remember I was the youngest person on Warped Tour for many years, and then he came in and he was younger than me, and I was like, who's this guy? And he's the sweetest guy. Anyone that's met Sonny knows he's like such a great human. And then I remember years later, when he left from First to Last, then he started making music just under like Sonny, or like Sonny Moore, or then just Sonny. And he had Sonny and the Blood Monkeys, I think it was called. Huh. And he would come over to my house because I lived up Mount Washington at the time, which is where he was from. So like, Sonny would come over and he would play me these new songs. And every band that he did was great. All his music he always made was great. And then I remember he came over and he was showing me, he was like, this music that he found in London, I want to say, being dubstep. And he played me dubstep because obviously Sonny and I were such like metalheads. We loved hard, heavy music. And all of a sudden this electronic music of dubstep was like, oh, it's like metal, but it's electronic. And he started making music. his own music that was fully electronic, and he was going deep into Ableton. And I remember going to his house. He lived downtown at the time, and he'd have like 5 laptops open, and he'd be on like AIM talking to like all different, he'd be talking to like Boys Noise and like Anton, who becomes Zed, and like all these things, right? Like they were like giving each other like Borgor and all these cool heavy artists, and he would be like producers, electronic producers, and they're also talented. They were like trading tricks, and I remember he showed me My Name is Skrillex before it came out and all these things, and he wanted to DJ, and I gave him his first DJ performance ever. At the time, it was 2009, I want to say. It might have been 2008. But in 2008, I started this weekly art and music event called Camerata, which was at Cinespace in Hollywood. And it was every single week, every single Sunday, and it became a really popular thing. And there was 3 rooms. There was a big theater, this middle DJ room, and then this balcony outside, which is just like where people would smoke. But sometimes I would have live artists out there, or projectionists or sculpturists or whatever it was. Sometimes, occasionally, a DJ. And Sonny wanted to DJ, so I was like, "Yeah, man, play." So I put him on the patio, and he played outside on the smoking patio as DJ Sonny Moore, and 25 people watching him, right? And he crushed it. It was so good. And then next thing you know, the smoking patio is packed, which it was never packed. It's like, what is this? And Sonny crushed it. He crushed it. It was so cool. Everyone was hearing dubstep for the first time, right? And then I had him play again in the middle room, which is where the DJs would typically play. 100 people, 150 people, crushed it, packed. It was so sick. Everyone loved it. And then I was like, bro, let's put you on in the theater in the main room, which was maybe, I don't know, a few hundred or 400 or 500, maybe max. I don't remember. And that's when he asked me, that's when he was like, he's like, would you drum with me? Because I don't think me standing there is enough of a show. He's like, if you drum with me, it'll be a show. And I was like, absolutely, bro. It'd be great. I love this music you're making. And that's how I started drumming with Skrillex. Oh, and then he also called me and was like, wait. Before that show, he was like, I don't want to go by Sonny. I thought of a name. And I was like, what's the name? And he was like, Skrillex. And I'll never forget, I told him, I was like, Skrillex? How do you spell that? He was like, Skrillex. And I was like, bro, I think you need to think of a new name. I don't think Skrillex is a good name.
It's not gonna stick.
I was wrong. And of course, Skrillex is an epic name. And then anyway, so he played in the theater and we put it under Skrillex, but we said below that, AKA Sonny Moore. So people would know. So it was like Skrillex, AKA Sonny Moore. And then we did Skrill Mo, which was Skrillex and Elmo together, our drummer DJ duo. And we did a bunch of shows, including Warped Tour. And, and those were the best days, man. And I'm just so proud of him. It's been so awesome watching his meteoric rise, and it happened so fast. And it was just such a great thing. And he's still the exact same awesome human that he's always been. And one of the most talented people alive. He really is.
Wow. I mean, it's also cool to look at it that he was kind of on the beginning of screamo and emo with From First to Last, and then being the like pioneer of bringing dubstep to the forefront is just. If you would have told me that, seeing them on Warped Tour, I would have been like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, but it also shows the impact of Warped Tour and where people came from, because you have Sonny, playing with From First to Last, doing really well and being a leader in that scene. But now you see him as Skrillex headlining the biggest things in the world. Like, who would have thought, like the evolution is incredible. And there's a bunch of that. A bunch of the musicians and stuff are now either artists with a different sound, or they are musicians. Like, I forgot which band, but like Chris Hornbrook has played drums as a hired gun for some bigger acts.
Big Black Delta, I want to say. I know he did the anniversaries of Census Fails, Let It Enfold You. I think it was like the 10th year, and like
Yep. Oh, who's another person? So I remember who were they? They were big and they played main stage. The Starting Line.
Oh, the Starting Line, yeah.
And Matt Watts, the guitar player from the Starting Line, was great. And so we were on Warped Tour together in probably 2002 or 3, and they were big at the time. And then 2020 rolls around, and I'm in a meeting at Fender talking about the Jam, my event that I produce with my company Jammcard, and and like the CEO of Fender's there, the CMO, all these big people, and this guy's looking at me. He's like, I know you from somewhere. Like, we know each other or whatever. It's Matt Watts from the starting line is running marketing for Fender. So it's like,
wow.
And that stuff happens, man. It'll be years later. I'll be in a meeting with someone and they'll be like, I'll be at a major label or at somewhere, and they'll be like, Elmo, man, we did Warped Tour together in 2001. I'm like, whoa, like we're still in music 20 years later. Like, we're some of the few, because it's really hard to last 20 years in music professionally, right? Like, so, so there's a lot of those stories of people that have become huge artists out of Warped Tour, people that have become huge drummers playing as hired guns, or people that have become huge execs, working at labels or working at gear companies like Fender or whatever. It's like so cool. And now, full circle, Matt Watts is actually, I think he's chief marketing officer or head of marketing at Vans.
No.
To go full circle from Vans Warped Tour to just running marketing for Vans is so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's also wild to just sit there and think, the lasting impact that Warped Tour and just, like we said in the beginning, just the genre-changing albums, the tours, the drums, just if for people who weren't there, it's hard to really try to wrap your head around it, for that time of music.
Absolutely.
So obviously, it's one of those, we're kind of nearing the end here. I kind of wanted to gather your final thoughts on, obviously, we've talked so much about it, but Warped Tour, and also just the drums and the bands of the time. What are your thoughts? Just like that era of music, it had so much going on pre MySpace day.
Yeah, it was amazing. And it's crazy to think that it was before camera phones and all this stuff, right? And before the internet, like, this is when I was on Warped Tour, there was no internet, or like there was no social media. There was no being able to just message everybody. And, we had Nokias, there wasn't even a Sidekick yet. There definitely wasn't an iPhone. And it was just amazing because Warped Tour and the punk rock scene, even outside of Warped Tour, but Warped Tour was kind of like, the biggest platform. But then the punk rock scene in general was such an amazing community. And when I say punk rock scene, I include pop punk and ska and even hardcore and that whole thing, right? Like, it was such a deep community everywhere we would go. All those shows, playing when I was in the Midpoint, playing the community centers and the bars and the cafes. It was amazing. Like, the vibe was amazing. There was so much camaraderie. The drummers would all be together. We would all just spend so much time together. We weren't ever just sitting there looking at our phones, right? So you're always talking with people. Like, I made so many friends. It was one of the best things that ever happened in my life, was just being in the punk rock touring community and being so inspired by NoFX and Eric with NoFX, or being so inspired by, and then watching Travis go into the stratosphere, right, with Blink and all these things. And then later, and then of course No Doubt and Chad with 311, and then later the Good Charlotte guys and all that stuff, like just going to this huge level of playing arenas, headlining arenas. And then I would still go backstage in the arenas and hang with them, or my band would open. We opened a lot of those tours. Like when I was in Never Heard of It, we got to play a lot of those bigger shows. And even I remember when I was in Limit Point, oh man, we played in Santa Barbara, and I was probably 16 years old, and we opened for Strung Out. And I got to stand right behind Jordan and watch him play like and just rip. And I was inches away from him, right? Just like just soaking it in, because I loved Strung Out. Strung Out was one of my favorites. I loved the really fast stuff. Being a drummer, I loved Propaganda, right? I definitely loved NoFX and that whole thing more than the faster the punk rock, the better, kind of, for me, right? Which is why I ended up getting into death metal and blast beats and all that kind of stuff, which ended up coming later. But I would just love, I remember, those Warped Tour years, being able to stand side stage and watch NoFX play, or to watch Rancid play, or to watch any of those, or watching Avenged play, and it was just such a special moment. And there was so much camaraderie backstage. There's just so much camaraderie. And I think Kevin Lyman built a lot of that, because if there wasn't the barbecue, we would have just left and been separated, or we would have gone.
There wasn't a
Hotel.
social setting.
It
Yeah,
would
there
have been,
wasn't a.
everyone would have gone into niches, right, or little cliques. And of course, there were still cliques within the barbecues, but still, it was like all in this area. So I think Kevin had a lot to do with that, but really, it was just the punk rock mentality. Like there was so much unity. Unity was such a word that was chanted, unity, like was in songs, and like so it was an amazing time. And what Daniel and the Orange County guys built is so admirable. Like to be able to build a brand is incredibly hard. To be able to build a company is incredibly hard. To be able to convince people to use your product and love your product, you can't convince people to love your product. You have to just make something that they love. That's incredibly hard.
Oh, absolutely. And as you're saying, I don't think, not that Warped Tour wouldn't be successful, or that maybe Orange County wouldn't be successful today, but the idea of that social media, iPhones, it was a different era. Like music was different, how you consumed it, how you listened, how you bought it, everything. Budgets were different. You really knew the product, or in that Orange County had done something special,
Mm-hmm.
is that they're finding your stuff without having to, the access to Instagram.
It also shows how hard running companies are, because the fact that OCDP isn't like a thing, or whatever its current status is. I'm not even hip to what its current status is, but like the fact that it's not what it was just shows how hard it is to run a company. And like these guys, I saw it firsthand with the Truth Drums guys. They'd work so hard. They were crafting in their garage, working day and night, and they were such nice guys, and they made amazing drums. And then all the other companies that also came, these boutique drum companies, they just were in it to win it and dedicated to the craft. And it's hard work and it's nonstop and there's a lot of competition. But look, like how many of them are still around, or how many of them are profitable companies, or how many of them are making comfortable livings, right? It's really, really hard. I also want to give a big shout out, rest in peace, to Jeremy, right? Like, like Jeremy was such a great human. So I did know Jeremy, but I didn't become friends with Jeremy until Q, when he started Q Drums. So I didn't know him at Orange County. I didn't know any of the Orange County guys in those Orange County days. It wasn't until later when I became a Pearl artist, and then I was signed with Sabian and Remo and Vic Firth and doing arena tours, where then I made friends with a lot of these other guys. I made friends with Kirsten, Daniel's wife, and big shout outs to Kirsten, because she's such an awesome person and has done so much for the drumming community herself. And I can only imagine that Kirsten and Daniel are a couple, like to just think about them, like talk, whatever their conversations are of just like dealing with Travis or dealing with whoever, because they had so many crossover artists and everything. But it's such a, at the time I didn't know that Daniel was the OCDP guy and then Kirsten was, and then they were together. I didn't never connected the dots, didn't know, because, it was early days, but Kirsten was always been so sweet and kind to me. And she's done amazing things and has been at Zildjian forever. But like these companies are really hard to run. It's really hard to make a company last for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And it's really hard to make a living with the company. Entrepreneurship's incredibly hard. And so it is amazing to see even the bigger legacy companies still being around. It's really hard. And these constantly shifting winds of business and culture. And, it's still Pearl and DW and these companies. So, and now, I mean, look, Zildjian owns Vic Firth now, Roland owns DW, right? Like there's been all lot of buyouts, and that's just how things change. And
even the old brands making a comeback, Rogers, Slingerland.
Yeah. Slingerland now coming back under DW, or under Roland, technically, right?
Yeah. Right.
And
George H. Way as well with DW.
Yeah. So there's a lot. And it's just, I would just say, like, my hat's off to Daniel and the whole team, and big hats off to what Jeremy built with Q was so amazing, because he was making really important drums that people resonated with immediately. And he was such a sweet guy that was so loved. That was such a big loss in the world and in the drumming community. And but yeah, I just want to give my love and appreciation and admiration to all these drum builders, because it's really hard. It's really, really hard. And
absolutely.
And I know Daniel's still with Travis, and I'm assuming his life is probably easier now, just being Travis's tech and whatever else. I'm sure he's doing other things outside of it. I just don't know what he's doing. I would love to talk with Daniel and catch up and see what's going on. But going from being Travis's tech and running Orange County compared to just being Travis's tech, I'm sure he still makes a great living and he can still do his thing and support his family with drums. but it's probably a lot less stressful.
Oh, yeah. The thing that I always thought about with Orange County is like, is it better to burn out or fade away? And I kind of feel like, they did the burnout, and it's crazy to think that, the drums are still being either used, talked about, and the bands that made their big genre altering records, they used these drums. So again, like you said, hats off to Daniel for that one, man.
I have one question for you. Actually, I have two questions for you. It's the same thing. I recognize both those kits standing behind you, the red, white, and blue kit and the yellow and black kit. I think the yellow and black kit was Travis's. Yeah? Is that a Travis kit?
It is a replica.
Okay.
Same with the so most of my kits, not all, but the good portion of the Orange County kits that are behind me that people can see later, they are replicas. It's one of those, when you think of Orange County, I mean, Travis had some of the most iconic kits,
For sure.
So these are all authentic, original, from the time. The flat black kit that you see next to the red, white, and blue is a boxcar racer replica.
Nice.
I'm also fortunate enough to have one of Cyrus Baluki's touring kits.
Cyrus, man, that's another one. So Cyrus is awesome and a sweet guy. And I haven't talked to Cyrus in a long time, but I talked to his brother Andrew, and his brother Andrew Baluki is now like a Grammy-winning engineer. He did Old Town Road, Lil Nas X.
Wow,
that's Cyrus's brother Andrew Baluki. So
big shouts to the he had a sibling. Yeah,
big shouts to the Baluki family, and because the Newfound Glory guys, man. For anyone that's still listening, if you want to go down, there's a whole other conversation we could have about drive-through records and the scene that drive-through records created, which was different than the scene that Epitaph created and Fat Records created and everything.
We need to mention Victory as well too.
And Victory, definitely Victory. But drive-through records. So Richard and Stephanie, who are the brother-sister duo that ran drive-through. So I wasn't signed to drive-through, but Richard and Stephanie managed my band. They managed Never Heard of It for a minute. So it was like we were drive-through adjacent. And so that's why I can't say Newfound Glory and Cyrus without thinking about drive-through and Richard and Stephanie and that amazing community that they built. I have no idea what they're doing. Haven't talked to them since I was a teenager. They were my manager for very short. It was not long-lived, but they also built a whole culture and community, which is crazy. So it's so many micro communities and substantial communities that came out of that scene.
Oh yeah, I mean, even just the fact that you can immediately, I say anything, it's kind of like you're like, oh yeah, I remember this, or they're just lasting memories. I'm envious and jealous that you were there to live it in real time and to see the drums being played in real time.
One final story that I think will be important for your listeners, if they're proper OCDP nerds and everything, was when I think I told Evan this when we hung the other day, but another memory that I have is when I was 15 or so. I was still in Limit Point, and I was playing the Glass House in Pomona, which was such an important venue. I don't know if it's still there or not, but very important venue in punk rock and in that whole scene. Early, it was when Golden Voice started, which before Coachella and everything, was like the Glass House. I want to say was the Golden Voice venue. And I remember Paul standing out front, the founder of Golden Voices, like, just being there, and we'd be flyering shows. We'd stand outside of the shows and flyer and be like, listen to Limit Point, or listen to whoever the band was that you were in. But anyways, I remember I played a show at the Glass House. I don't remember who the headliner was that played after Limit Point, but I remember who the opening band was that played before Limit Point. And it was a band called Fon, F-O-N. And the drummer was a 10-year-old Elon Rubin. And backstage with me, with my drum setup, it was my kit and Elon's kit. And that was the first time I ever saw Elon play, because I was like 15, but he was like 10, right? And so we were backstage hanging out. And who walks in backstage? Travis Barker. Why is Travis Barker there? Because he's giving Elon drum lessons. Right?
Yeah, that's wild.
And I talked to Travis. And he's like, and I'm like, dude, you're giving Elon drum lessons? I'm 15, right? Travis is like, he had just, I want to say it was the beginning of Blink. It was Blink at their just rocket ship, like Enema of the State days, I want to say, right?
Wow.
And so I talked with Travis, and I was like, man, you're giving Elon lessons. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, will you give me lessons? He was like, yeah, sure. I was like, okay, great. He was like, here, call this number and we'll set it up. I was like, oh my God, amazing. Holy crap. Right. I couldn't believe it. And then I went home and I was so scared to call the number. First of all, Elon killed it that night. I've never seen a 10-year-old drum like this. He was like a young white Tony Royster Jr., right? Because that was the only other time I saw a drummer at that age play at that level was Tony Royster. And then all of a sudden, this young Elon Rubin, right? And we, it takes me like a week or two to muster up the courage to call the number that Travis gave me to schedule the lesson. And I was like, I don't know how much this is going to cost. I don't know, like, is this his number? Like, what is this, So I finally, weeks later, called the number, and then they answered the phone. Famous Stars and Straps. And I was like, oh, this is Famous Stars and Straps, like office? Like, what is this? And I was like, hey, yeah, is Travis Barker there? I'm like 15, right? And they're like, no, can we take a message for you? And I was like, oh yeah, my name is Elmo, and Travis said he was going to give me drum lessons, and I'd like to schedule a time. And they're like, oh sure, we could schedule a time with you right now. And I was like, okay. And they're like, what days work for you? And I was like, is this happening? Is this really happening? And I was like, whatever. Like, where are you? They're like, oh, this is they were in like Corona or something, which I was in Pasadena. So it's like far for a 15-year-old, right?
Were you sitting there thinking like Ashton Kutcher is going to pop out and you're being punked right now? Is
Dude,
this really
seriously,
a thing?
I'm on my home phone. I'm 15, right? Like my with the home phone with the cord and the answering machine. And so I scheduled a time with them, whatever that time ended up being, 2 weeks away. And they're like, okay, cool. By the way, it'll be $60 and just bring cash with you. And I was like, okay. I'm like, $60 for Travis Barker drum lesson with the most famous drummer in the world right now? Like, why is he doing this? And then I was like, whoa. And I was like, holy crap. Travis Barker for sure is, rich at that point now. It was in the early days of him being rich because he maybe had been in Blink for a year or two. But he was already, what's my age again video. He's running around naked on MTV, like all that stuff. Like it was already that. And it made me realize he's charging $60. That means he's doing this just for the love. And he just wants to give back. He's not trying to make money, like he's just putting a price on it. So there's a price, but $60, that's crazy. And all you have to do is have this number that Travis gives you. So anyways, the sad ending to the story is a couple weeks later, they called me and said, we have to reschedule. Travis can't do it anymore. I said, no problem. And it never happened.
Oh,
it never happened. And to this day, I've never had a drum lesson.
Well, I mean, I feel like you should totally hit up Travis and get a drum lessons and pay him $60.
Yeah, be like, same rate. Yeah. Same rate.
Same rate. Yeah, we're good. It's funny you mentioned Elon because we talked about Orange County, obviously, like being on the cusp of things. I think of a lot of guys like Gil Sharon.
Oh yeah, Gil's the homie too. Gil's the homie.
Yeah, playing with Stolen Babies. Now he's with Marilyn Manson. You know what I mean? Yep. And played with Dillinger. Dude's a beast behind the kid. Yep. Ray Luzier, at the time when he's with Orange County, was just doing David Lee Roth. Now he's been with Korn for since like 2009. And
with Pearl.
Elon, yeah.
Ray Luzier is the homie. I love everyone you just said are the
such
homies.
Heavy hitters, man.
When I first started Jammcard, before it was anything, I did my first interview series I was just like, I had an idea to do an interview series called How I Got the Gig. And this is about to be 10 years since that day. It's been 9 years right now. And I hit up Ray and I said, hey man, would you do my web series? Can I interview you? Like, I want to do How I Got the Gig and hear your story about Korn, how you got the gig with Korn. He was like, for sure, man. And he came and he did it. And it's online. You can still watch it from 9 years ago, me interviewing. It's one of my first interviews I ever did as an interviewer. And
we have to share that link because
man.
Now I'm curious. That's awesome.
I think it's my third interview I ever did. But Ray was such a supporter. To say, yeah, man, let's go and do it. And he's such a sweet guy. And And yeah, big shouts to Ray because he's an amazing drummer, and I remember him before Korn. I remember
before the
seeing,
Korn
yeah,
days.
yeah, yeah.
Kind of wanted to like just bring it back, like how full circle of music is, and how you keep running into people and everything like that. And like I just wanted to bring back that Orange County took chances on the guys I mentioned, like Ray Luzier, Gil Sharon, and Alon, and now Alon is the drummer for the Foo Fighters, and it's wild to think that Orange County took the chance on them when they were playing the small, like a show at the Roxy, and now it's like, oh yeah, we're about to hit a world tour, and I'm the drummer for Foo Fighters, or yeah, Marilyn Manson, we're gonna just do this festival, in Germany for, 250,000 people, 500,000 people.
But not only that, Travis was his teacher even back then. Travis was teaching Elon when Elon was a child, not even a teenager, I want to say. I swear.
Wow.
And I just want to say also, I think he's the right drummer for Foo Fighters. Josh Freese is an amazing drummer. I love Josh Freese. I've watched Josh Freese play I've loved Josh Freese since the Vandals before he was doing anything else, right? But Elon for Foo Fighters. Yes.
Oh, totally. It's a real quick story. I know we keep going off on these amazing stories and tangents. It's awesome. But I want to say it was Bonnaroo, that music festival that's in Manchester, Tennessee. This probably would have been like 2010, maybe 2009. And Weezer was on one of the main stages. And I went to go see him. Obviously I'm familiar with their music. And I'm like, why? Because again, some of these festivals, if you're all the way in the back, you have to look up on the TV, I call it, I'm watching the performance sometimes. And
sure.
I'm like, why are the drums ripping so much? And I'm like, not that their current drummer, Pat, is like a bad drummer or anything. It just was like it just had a different vibe. And sure enough, Josh Freese was covering the gig and was just like, oh my God, ripping out. Like they kept doing these little breaks of like Hot for Teacher. And like Josh just
Weezer
going
was
for it. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
they kept doing this thing
Josh
too.
loves Hot for Teacher, as do I. That's one of my favorite songs
Yeah.
of all time. Yeah.
Oh, they kept doing it too. They would be like, we're masters of all musical style, and they kept going like the Real Big Fish thing of like master, master, and it would just go off on these things. And I'm like, dude, like as a drummer, nobody knows like how much I'm nerding out right now.
One more thing you just reminded me of when you said Real Big Fish. The first ska band I ever toured with when I was 15 or 16 was Safe Ferris. And I did a US tour with Safe Ferris, and Monique and I got really tight, the lead singer, and the other person that I got really tight with was the drummer, Evan. And Evan Kilborn was playing OCDP, right? Wasn't that OCDP?
He was. It's funny.
Yo,
full circle.
And he was killing it back then with, I wonder where, I haven't talked to Evan since then, since I was like 16 or 17. So Evan, I don't know where you are, but bro, reach out to me because he was the homie and he was so incredible. I wonder what he's doing.
It's funny. I'm actually going to reach out to him because we had that builder, Nick Turner, on, and the drum that I was refurbishing that Evan had mentioned how we got partnered up with all of this used to belong to Evan, or used to, there's a few Evans here, but yeah, he would play Orange County, and Nick got that snare from him, and I refurbished it, right? And I remember joking, and I'm like, Save Ferris. I'm like, I feel like they were also in a movie, like that era of time where like bands were in pop culture movies, and it was 10 Things I Hate About You. Save Ferris was in there. And another thing that is crazy is that he's the current drummer for Lit. And
He is?
the old drummer, yeah, and the old drummer, Alan, I forget his last name. I think he passed away from brain cancer in the early 2000s, but he's now in Lit, and also he played Orange County. So it's kind of wild to think that, again, how it always ties back. Like the music business is such a weird thing. But yeah, definitely want to get him on, because again, like Save Ferris, like I know the songs. Like you might not recognize the band, but you hear the music, you're like, oh, okay, I know this song.
Yes.
Yeah.
I filled in on drums with Safe Ferris for Evan when I was like 15, 16. I think just one show, or I think it was just a few songs of one show. Like he was late and we were opening. Something, oh God, there wasn't Google Calendar back then, so I couldn't add it into my calendar to remember.
Pull out the old Rolodex. But
dude, it's fun to think about. It's fun to think about. It's been a long time.
What do you call? I would love to sit here and talk forever about stories. This is amazing. But we're going to direct our listeners over to Patreon. If you haven't already, please go over to our Patreon and sign up. And I think you're really going to love the content that we have going to you guys. And Elmo, man, thank you so much for your time, your stories. I mean, you've done so much just in music and Jammcard. And I really appreciate you just trying to capture that moment in time with me. You know what I mean? And really go down the rabbit hole.
Hey, it's my pleasure. It's fun. I love that you guys are doing this. Thanks to Evan for reaching out. And yeah, keep crushing it.
That's our time with Elmo. From punk stages and Warped Tour chaos to building a global platform for musicians, his journey shows the hustle, heart, and evolution of a drummer who never stops pushing forward. Thanks for listening to the Fully Vented podcast. Until next time, keep the stories alive and the music loud.